welcome to our Student Alumni Mentoring Initiative training. It is so great to see all of you here today. And just to make sure that you are in the right place, this is our Sami mentor training for all of our alumni who would like to mentor an HGSE current student this upcoming academic year. So you might notice that we are in a Zoom meeting format. So you can have your video turned on or off, whichever you feel most comfortable with. We will have an opportunity for Q&A at the end of the session. And at that point, you can raise your hand and unmute to ask a question, or you can put your question into the chat. You may have also noticed that we are recording this session, and that recording will be shared with everyone in a follow-up email by early next week. So you have the video for your reference. And we do have closed captioning available for today's session. So if you'd like to see those captions, please click on the CC/live transcript button, then click on show subtitle. You can also turn off your subtitles by clicking on live transcript, then click hide subtitle. And then finally, we'd love to know who is here. So please put your information into the chat, your degree program, your graduation year, and where you're Zooming in from today. And as we get started, we'd like to introduce ourselves. So Emily, can I have you unmute and introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Williams, Director of Career and Alumni Engagement. Good to see you all here today. And I enjoy working on both overseeing our alumni engagement strategy as well as our career services office. Thank you all for volunteering your time and your talents and your energy and your insights. We're so appreciative of such a wonderful alumni community. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you, Emily. And I'll introduce myself. My name is Lisa Himmelman. I am the Assistant Director of Alumni Engagement. I have had the pleasure of working at HGSE since May of 2022. I'm also the person who's constantly emailing all of you. So I apologize for that, but I do hope that all of my emails are helpful. And it's so nice to see many names and faces that I've recognized over my year plus at the school. So really what Emily and I are hoping to bring is support to this valuable program that has been going on for over a decade now. And with that, we're really receptive to your feedback. So what's working, what's not working, in order to better grow and sustain the program year over year. So we really do want to hear from you. And before I get into the kind of the meat of our presentation here, we just want to start out by saying thank you. Thank you for taking the time to participate in this program. We are thrilled with the response that we have received from alumni. We have about 450 active alumni mentor applications, which is fantastic. And as you all know, this is a really important opportunity for our students that really enhances their time while at HGSE. And it wouldn't be possible without all of you, our alumni, without your commitment, your knowledge, your expertise. So again, thank you. So I'm going to start with a program overview, and for our alums who have participated in Sami before, you may have also attended our training session last year. Some of this is going to look familiar, but there have been some minor changes to the program for this upcoming year's iteration, so it's important to just do a review of those items. So I can't see all of you, but by a show of hands, how many of you, I guess virtual Zoom hands, have participated in this program as a mentor before? Awesome. Okay, I was just able to get my screen open here so I can see. So it looks like many of you have. That's great. And as a student, how many of you participated as a mentee? So you were kind of on the other side of it. Awesome. Awesome. And some of you might have done both. So you've seen both sides, and that's great. So what is Sami? So Sami is our loving acronym for the Student Alumni Mentoring Initiative. This program pairs current students with alumni for a 9-month mentorship during the academic year. This year, we made the conscious choice based on feedback we received to start the program a little bit earlier. So the program will formally launch in August and run for 9 months, which will overlap the majority of our one-year residential master's students program, and then conclude in April. And throughout this time, the program will focus on the students' personal and professional development, career exploration, and networking. And both our alumni mentors and student mentees are required to complete an application in order to be considered for the program. All of you can check that off your list. You've already done that. So we're glad you're here today. And the application process for both our students and alumni closed last Sunday, July 16th. So alumni mentors are offered a required training. Again, something you can check off of your list. You're here today, so thank you. And our students are required to attend training as well. And just like with the rest of our program, if there's any feedback you want to provide us on the training, please do so. We're happy to review any suggestions you may have for how we can continue to improve our mentor training year over year. And our students, we really emphasize the training with them. We want them to buy into this program to help them to understand the process and the expectations as they get involved. We spend time hand matching our mentors and mentees based on similar interests, degrees, career paths, personal identity traits. And we really, work hard to make these matches as good of a fit as we can, with the understanding that it may not be a perfect match, but regardless, we want you to feel that this mentoring relationship is beneficial to both you and your mentee. That's the ultimate goal. We also don't have more than 2 mentees per mentor, though we expect this year, based on numbers, that they will all be one-to-one matches. So 1 mentor, 1 mentee. I also wanted to take some time to quickly review the timeline of the program, just to have an overall expectation of what's going to happen throughout the 9 months that you're participating and even prior to our August launch. So in June and July, we opened up the call for mentor and mentee applications. And over the course of the next few weeks, we will be offering our mentor trainings as well as our mentee trainings. And then in August, most likely early August, we will be announcing our matches. So over these next few weeks leading up to August, we're also going to be working on the hand matching process. And the program will officially start in August when the matches are announced. And at that time, we are expecting that your mentee will set up an initial meeting with you, hopefully by the end of August, just to sort of stay on track, to introduce themselves, talk about their hopes for the program. You can set goals and expectations with them, schedule upcoming meetings if that would be helpful. And throughout the program, month by month, you will be communicating with your mentee, they will be communicating with you, and you will also hear from our team as well with outreach, support, other resources that will be helpful while you're mentoring. Going into the fall semester, your mentee is to come to your second or at least by your third meeting with their SMART goals. We'll talk about the SMART goals framework in a little bit, but really those goals are for their mentoring experience so that you as their mentor can provide feedback and suggestions for next steps. You'll continue to track progress with your mentee throughout the fall semester, and by December, they'll be wrapping up fall term. They can talk to you about how it went and start thinking about going into the spring semester. And then by the time January hits, our one-year students are going to be kind of rushing towards the end of their programs. And those of you who are in that program understand that feeling. It goes by very fast. So your mentee is most likely going to be talking with you about how to prepare for graduation and for those next steps, and navigating their spring semester and the duration of their time at HGSC. And then in April, the formal program will end. And that's really from an administrative standpoint. And I want to make that clarification. But we really want to encourage all of you to maintain a relationship with your mentee going forward after the formal conclusion of the program this academic year. So you can decide what type of cadence of communication, how that relationship is going to work. And we'll be conducting surveys and feedback sessions with everyone just to find out how your experience was, what worked well, and what we could do better. And now I'm going to talk a little bit more about understanding mentorship and really what being a mentor means. So some mentor do's and don'ts. Do help your mentee take the initiative in this connection and help them to learn to engage in relationships and also networking with professionals in the field. A lot of your conversations are probably going to be career focused, and so this is very important for them. And I talked a little bit about this before, about this ownership piece with the mentee sort of taking the lead in this mentorship partnership. Do listen to your mentees' ideas and their issues and things that come up throughout your time working with them, and make it clear that your mentee is not expected to follow all of your suggestions. That's why they're called suggestions. There might be times where your mentee decides to pivot or feels that going in a different direction would work better for them, and that's perfectly fine. And continue to help your mentee to make progress against those goals that you'll set at the beginning of your mentorship with them. And similar to before, don't assume that your advice or suggestions will be followed. Don't ignore the mentee's objectives. That's a primary reason for the mentorship, is to work towards their objectives and goals. And please don't hesitate to reach out to our team, to Emily and I, with any issues or challenges that come up. We are here for you. So some things a mentor is not. A mentor is not a therapist, a career coach, or an academic advisor. Really, mentorship helps to guide a student, not tell them a prescribed path to take. You are there to serve as a guide, to provide advice on things that are related professionally, help them navigate themselves personally. So that it's really important to understand that distinction with what being a mentor is. You may not have all the answers for them, and that is perfectly fine. We are so fortunate to be part of this amazing HGSE community, and the students have access to tons of resources, and we're going to hear from a couple of them coming up next. But some of these resources include academic program staff, their faculty advisors, the Office of Student Affairs, financial aid, registrar, career services office, amongst others. And as I alluded to, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing two of our wonderful colleagues who have taken time to be here with us today to talk to you about support resources for students, and we're so grateful to them. I'd like to introduce Andrea Lee, who is the Assistant Director for Community Building and International Student Support, who will talk about international student supports that are in place for those students. And Kellyanne Robinson, who's the Senior Associate Director for Student Support Services, who's going to talk about additional student resources. So Andrea, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa. And thanks to everyone for being here today. It's really nice to see you and see some familiar names and faces. So, and thank you so much for signing up for this program. I know it means so much to our students to be able to connect with you and get your guidance throughout the year. So I just wanted to give a quick couple of notes on working with international students. So this year, international students are going to make up about 50% of our student body, which is exciting. And I just want to highlight a few things to note that are particularly of interest for international students. And the biggest thing around career and international students is immigration regulations. And unfortunately, these can tend to limit students' opportunities when they're thinking about opportunities off campus, either while they're a student or after graduation. And so it's definitely not your responsibility to be well versed in all of the immigration regulations or the limitations that some international students might have. That really is a part of the student's responsibility to understand what opportunities are and are not available to them as students. But it's just good to keep that in mind as you're working with students, and if it comes up that maybe they have an international background, just to be aware that they might be a little bit more limited than a domestic student in some of the internships and opportunities while they were students. And then after graduation, if they decide to stay in the United States and work, which many do not, some go back to their home countries right away. But if they do want to stay and work in the United States, they should be thinking about work authorization. And their work authorization is often tied to their employment. So that kind of adds to the stress level of our international students when they're graduating and attempting to get jobs. So it's just something to be aware of and to understand if you are matched with an international student. When in doubt, feel free to direct students to me or to Ashley Anton in the Harvard International Office. Any immigration related question should definitely go to Ashley. We want to make sure students get the most accurate guidance related to their questions around immigration. So Ashley is our expert on that and is the liaison to the ed school. Her email address is here, but again, feel free to point them my way as well, and I'll make sure that they get the resources that they need. But yeah, that's it. Thank you again, and so great to see you all here today.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Kellyanne, on to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kellyanne Robinson, and like Andrea, I'm so appreciative that you guys are giving up your time for this. I see so many familiar faces, and I've run into a number of students who have been mentees in the past, and they really get a lot out of it. So I wanted to highlight, there's a few services that Student Support Services offers as part of the Office of Student Affairs. But one of them that I think is oftentimes one of the most beneficial things is that as you develop your relationship with your mentee, sometimes they share things that are more personal or even some academic concerns. And Lisa pointed out, you're not a therapist, but there is a mechanism by which you can find support and also have students get connected to support. And that is a student support outreach form. It's called an I Notice I Care. Basically, it's a form that you submit. And the goal of that form is, the students share something with you, you're not sure what to do with it. And when you complete that form, it comes to me and I can provide emotional support, some mindfulness practices, basically a safe space to listen, process, and problem solve. And then I can connect them to things like academic coaching, where folks can work on time management, planning and prioritizing, issues related to imposter syndrome, perfectionism, all the things that are listed there. And also other supports, whether that's the Counseling Mental Health Center, there's now telehealth services. We also in the Office of Student Affairs have gathered resources about food, about clothing, furniture, financial support, spiritual and religious, affinity groups, and again, mental health. So this form, I'm sure, Lisa can share the link with you. It's also on this slide, is a great resource to initiate that. And if you're not sure, then absolutely, please feel free to email me and I can answer any of your questions. I see my services, supporting students now and beyond. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And thank you again, you guys. It's a really great addition to the many services that HUDSI provides. I think it's fantastic. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kellyanne. And yes, I will absolutely share a link to that form, as well as your and Andrea's contact information when I follow up. Thank you both. This is invaluable information for our mentors today. So I'm going to round up this section of the program just to talk more about SMART goals, which is something that I noted earlier. So just by a show of hands, how many of you are familiar with the SMART goals framework? Maybe you've used it or you've seen it before. Awesome. So it looks like some of you have. That's great. So SMART goals is one of many types of goal setting frameworks. that are available. And this is really a helpful way of setting goals with your mentees and helping them to hold themselves accountable to those goals. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. And it's a good way to just kind of think through, you know, what are your mentees' goals for the mentorship? How are you going to measure meeting those goals over time? Can the goals be met as you're moving through the program? Do they align with your mentees' HGSE experience and what the goals they have for themselves as a student and beyond? And what is the time frame for these goals? You know, is it the entirety of the mentorship program? Are you going to kind of compartmentalize the goals? So in your initial meeting in August, you can, you know, help your mentee determine how you want to spend your time together. You know, at the end of the day, you know, mentorship is more than just a mentee asking for a job or opening up your LinkedIn network to them. You really want this to be a strategic, beneficial relationship. So using a goals framework like SMART can really help you achieve that. And so now I'm going to spend a little bit of time reviewing the program expectations, which are obviously pivotal to this program and navigating it successfully. So what we are hoping, and this is something that's kind of come up throughout the presentation, is that most of these expectations will be taken over by the mentee, that they will take ownership of this partnership with you. We don't want this to be a heavy lift for our mentors. However, we do expect that our mentors will commit to at least one 30-minute meeting per month for the 9-month duration. That you will attend one required mentor training. I said before, you can check this off your list because you're here. That you will define and discuss goals and expectations with your mentee using the SMART goals framework or not, whatever feels most comfortable for you. That you will determine with your mentee an agreed upon communication schedule at the first meeting. It might be helpful for you to set your meetings for the fall semester or beyond, just so you have them on your calendar from month to month. And in terms of your communications, you want to make sure you're responding and outreaching timely to your mentee. So we recommend responding within 24 to 48 business hours, even if it's just a placeholder to say, hey, I received your email. I will respond more fully in the next couple of days, just so your mentee knows that you're there for them. We want you to always feel that the line of communication is open with our office. So to contact us about your progress, your questions, or your concerns with our team as those come up over time. And if there's at any point where you're starting to feel that the commitment is a little bit too much, or you just want to troubleshoot with us a little bit to navigate your mentorship, we can certainly do that with you. We can also, if needed, look to assign your mentee to a new mentor. That's always a possibility as well. And we really want you to be open and honest, as open and honest as you feel comfortable with your mentee. They will benefit from learning about both your successes and your failures. It's very important. So however honest you can be will be invaluable to them. And if you don't have the answer, feel free to direct your mentee to another one of the many resources. And we met some of them today. We learned about some of them today that are available to them at HGSE. You can also refer them directly to our alumni engagement team, and we're happy to help them and to help you with whatever has come up. This really should not be a difficult experience for you. We want it to be enjoyable. So again, please feel free to contact us with any concerns or questions. And so now that we've shared what we expect your role to be, we'd be working with mentees during their training and beyond to help them understand their role and expectations as well. And you can see a lot of those roles and expectations overlap with yours. So committing to at least one 30-minute meeting per month, attending one of the required trainings. One point in particular we will make clear is that they understand there is no obligation from the mentor for future employment or internship opportunities. That is not what mentorship is for. It's to support them, guide them, provide advice. that they agree upon a communication schedule, and that they are also timely with their communications and outreach. Again, with that ownership piece, they really need to do that. That they will advocate for their role and their needs during the mentoring relationship and make sure that they are working towards their goals effectively, that they come prepared to meetings, and that they communicate with our team as well, just so we can stay in touch when things arise. And so while we hope and we don't expect there to be issues, things could come up. So we just want to address how to manage those issues if that should happen. So we empower you to initiate communication if you haven't heard from your mentee for an extended period of time. We're also happy to help you facilitate that communication if that would be useful for you, so you can reach out about that. If you ever feel uncomfortable with an exchange, or a question or situation arises that you aren't sure how to resolve, you can certainly feel open to talk to your mentee directly. That is always appropriate. But if you don't feel comfortable doing that, or if it's not appropriate in that context, please refer the matter to our team and we will follow up accordingly. And then if there's anything else, we're here. So alumserve@gsc.harvard.edu is our primary alumni email address. That inbox is monitored by both Emily and myself. So that is the best way to reach us. And we always respond very timely, so you can communicate with us via that method. And then finally, there's this question that has come up, and something that definitely popped up during our program last year. So what happens if I don't get matched? So given, participation numbers, we're gonna do our best to match you with a mentee, but with that, a match is not guaranteed. And so we did want to be honest and upfront about that possibility with all of you today. And so in the event that for one reason or another, you don't get matched, there are many great options for staying involved with HGSC this academic year. So I've listed a few of them here: participating on a panel, being active in the HGSC alumni community online platform, serving as a career connector for students, participating and maybe to help facilitate networking events, applying to be an alumni admissions ambassador, and there are others. So in the situation where you may not get matched, our team will reach out to those folks as soon as the program starts to let them know the situation. And we will offer these different opportunities to you and give you a chance to volunteer for those. So just again, to drive the point home that there would be opportunities for you to stay connected to HGSC, to support current students, even if you don't get matched this year. And so that brings me to a very exciting portion of our program where we get to hear from two former mentors and a former mentee of the Sami program. We know that some of you have participated in Sami before or have been part of other mentorship programs in the past, but we wanted you to hear directly from alumni and students who have participated in the more recent iteration of our program. So I'm pleased to welcome Erin Collins, EDM class of 2022, and Aaron Boss-Lund, who EDM class of 2017, who were both Sami mentors in 2022 and 2023, and Benjamin Kraus, EDM class of 2023, a recent grad who was a mentee this past year. So Erin, could you please get us started?
Sure. Thank you for that warm welcome, and hello to former classmates I see on here and other alum. It's great to be in community with everybody today. As Lisa said, my name is Erin Collins. I'm EDM 22. I was in the ELOE program, and for those of you who are prior to 2022, there was a reorg to our program. So it's the leader, basically the educational leadership cohort and a higher ed concentrator. And we're just doing introductions, right, Emily? Just making sure I'm keeping my notes straight, or do you want me to go into my
Oh,
Or sorry, Lisa, sorry, I'm looking at Emily.
Erin, you can, yeah, certainly, please
Okay.
introduce yourself and then share out your experiences.
Oh,
That's
perfect. Sorry. I have experienced both as having been a mentee and a mentor, and it's incredibly it's just such a wonderful feeling to be able to help people who are going through this really big moment in their life. I think all of us, no matter our year, come to Harvard, and it's very easy to let the brand, the school, it feels so big, right? It feels like such a loaded time that you have to try to get everything out of every minute that you are at Hugsy. And I think that my experience is it's just been on both sides of the table, is it's just so helpful to be able to help people take that breath. That's always kind of how I felt was my biggest responsibility as a mentor, is to kind of, even if my mentee had certain goals but came into the conversation, to meet them where they're at and just really dig deep and remember that the stakes feel so high for them, that you're really a safe space for you to help lower that temperature and help them take a breath. And as others have said in the introduction, I also kind of feel like I'm the Google, right? So it's not my responsibility to provide all these tremendous resources like we just heard from so many folks, but to kind of help get them back to where that might be. Because as we all know, you get a lot of information, and for those of us who've taken How People Learn, one of the new core courses, our brains can only take so much at one moment, right? So, at some point you think, maybe I heard about that office or that resource, but I don't remember. It was orientation and I've got 7 papers due and I'm behind on my reading. And so to just be able to point somebody to the resource, even though, it can feel like everybody must know where everything is, but it's a lot to take in at once. And so, it was just like really powerful to just help, my mentee last year to kind of navigate that system. And there is often, I find, both from, just hearing from other peers who are in the program, this big focus on what's next as well. And I think that we can serve a really valuable role in helping them to think about that and networking, but also to take a breath on that, because it's really hard to be, for most folks, not all folks, but a lot of people who are in the 1-year program. And if they're not in the 1-year program, they're feeling that pressure from their peers who are. So there's that clock kind of always ticking. And I found that it was really helpful to, even on the job search, to take that breath, not to say not think about it, but here's a way to process it and to not let that consume your entire time, because the jobs will come, right? For all of us who've been through this know, and a lot of us, put a lot of stuff on hold. It's a big investment. So that pressure is real and it's important to not discount it. But I think that having somebody, a safe space where you can say like, I don't know, or how am I doing? It's hard to do that with your peers. So I would just say, for everybody on this call thinking about that, we all bring such unique talents and backgrounds and specialties to the table. But I think the universal truth is that you can be a safe harbor for these folks who are feeling a lot of different things, pulling them different directions. And I think that if you all think back to your time, it's kind of a high achieving environment where even the most organized people, it's easy to feel like you're somehow behind all the time. And I think having somebody who can tell you you're right on track, and what you're doing is enough and you're going to be okay, is really, really valuable. And it's very, on our end, it reminded me of how lucky I've been to have this community and why it's so important to stay connected to it. So those are kind of my high level thoughts about my experience.
awesome. Thank you so much, Erin. Erin, can you go ahead and introduce yourself and share out your experience?
Yes, as the other 33% of the Erins on the call, happy to. A lot of what Erin Collins said, mirrored my own experience. I was first time Sami mentor last year. And I think there's sort of 3 areas that I can boil down the domains of the experience. One is about career, another is about making the most of your experience, which is the most like what Erin said, and the other is about general perspective. And I think I'll start with career because, whether it was Lisa or whoever made the pairing really did a great job, because personally I went to HGSE because I'd been in City Year, and then I was a classroom teacher for 4 years, and I was starting to get involved in policy and politics and advocacy, and I wanted to bridge my school-based experience with policy and political work. And so HGSE was like the first step towards doing that. And I got paired with someone who was navigating the exact same thing. I've been a classroom teacher involved in union advocacy and was interning with the National Education Association and their campaign arm. And it was a similar sort of thing in that like, he was walking, I mean, it was almost exactly my experience. It was, and like even the stage of life we were at, I was 5 years ago, and it was like exactly the same trajectory distance from college to where he was. And so he was sort of like grappling these questions of like, I want to do campaigns. And then you're in a place like HGSE where, as we all know, it's like you have all the resources in the world available. And as Dean Ryan used to say, like, if you do the absolute most in this experience, like the absolute most, you're probably going to access about 1% of the resources at HGSE in this year, right? And so against that, and especially for people who are wanting to learn more about political campaigns, which is so frenetic and all of those things, it was really helpful to be able to, as you sort of get pulled in different directions, I'd say, well, I think this one's going to be useful for the future. This one might not be. That said, like, if that's useful, then that's useful. But sort of some of that outside perspective, which gets into the second thing, which was, and I know personally, I mean, I actually hadn't realized that Sami was around when I wish I could have been part of it, because that was something we would do, is like he would have these amazing experiences and I would sort of be able to serve as a reminder of how unique that thing was, or other people to follow up with. So even at the beginning, especially because we shared similar interests, on at least 4, maybe 5 occasions, I gave him the names of people he should reach out with for a coffee, professors mostly, and one administrator. And like, I currently am Deputy Executive Director of Men for Choice, where we educate, activate, and mobilize pro-choice men to step up as allies. And a lot of the work that I do comes out of a class I took with Marshall Gans on organizing. And so I encouraged him to take that class, which he ended up doing. And what was interesting is like, I was running our youth fellowship program, which is based on, I see Raquel took it. I mean, it's one of everyone who takes it, I always joke, I'm like a very like obnoxiously individualistic person in most ways, with like the very notable exception of Marshall Gans and Lady Gaga. I'm like, if either of them started a cult, I'd be right in. And the rest of the time, I'm like really my own thing, right? So like I was running this program where on a week by week basis, I would be sort of relaying things that were based on the Gans model. And he was like, oh, wow. Like it kind of gave him this perspective of like, here I was doing, like here I am 5 years later. And I'm like, oh my God, you're doing that unit. Like I still talk about that unit 5 years later. So like that kind of perspective, you just can't get unless you're talking to someone who's on the outside. And in my case, it was outside, but like had been in his shoes exactly. And I guess that gets back to the last part of it, which was, make the most of your experiences. Like Aaron was saying, he had the same kind of overachiever anxiety that all of us who go there have, and that sense of, am I doing enough? Am I, and I could ask questions and help him prioritize. Like he was sort of grappling, do I want to go in like an international policy route, or do I want to go in like a domestic thing? And we sort of talk about, oh, okay, well, is your career goal, you want to be a chief of staff in this kind of organization, well, then these are the kinds of things to think about. And yes, that thing is cool, but maybe it doesn't serve that purpose, and maybe it's worth exploring and all of that. But just sort of being a sounding board for all of those things, he would tell me, was really helpful, because I think back to my experience, and I ended up taking I mean, every single part of it was good. I don't think I have no regrets about HGSE, but knowing, the more I knew about the institution, the better decisions I could have made about places to go and how to spend my time. Because as we know, absolutely everything is a trade-off. You go to this thing, you're not going to that thing. And so, that was one of my intentions. And he would tell me was helpful was, kind of, I wish I had done more of this when I was there. You can do that now, or that thing was really valuable. You should look at that. So I think it was those things. I think it was career, it was making the most of your experience, and it was perspective.
Awesome. Aaron, thank you so much. That was extremely helpful too. Benjamin, can you tell us about what it was like being a mentee?
Hi, everyone. I think I'm on the other side of this call. My name is Benjamin. I'm currently in Chile. That's my home country, traveling tomorrow back to the area. And I think my mentor is on this call because I saw her name. So I don't want to expose her, but hi, you rock. You're the best. Thank you, someone over there, Chilelele. I connect very well to what Andrea was speaking earlier because I was an international student. I'm still an international individual. And I do appreciate everything that HAXI gave me, or HGSE. And I always like to tell, even though there's a lot of mixtures between, you either call it HGSE or HAXI, the Sami program is part of the HAXI experience, the one that hugs you. And I really appreciated being part of it because it gave me a sense of what was going on and helped me understand how to navigate the American context, the American schooling context, and specifically what I was interested, school as organizations in the United States. I remember arriving in a very rough time for me because I got married, was doing HPL by the time, and traveled to Boston. So my honeymoon with my spouse was literally Cambridge, traveling to Cambridge. So suddenly I was with so many information and I didn't understand what to do. So I'm really grateful to know and to learn that the Sami program is starting earlier because we started a little bit later. And I was connecting to what Aaron said. I was impressed because my mentor was literally what I want to be in a couple of years, or like in 10 years. So it's incredible how well it's connected to your own interests and how important it is to have that connection and that feeling, because you're literally seeing yourself through a mirror in how you want to be in like 10 years. So just by answering what Emily said, I was trying to think what was my SMART goal. And I don't specifically remember the SMART goal, but I do remember in our like second or third meeting, I told her, I don't know how to navigate this context. And I really want to try to understand how schools work in the United States, because I have a vast curriculum in another country. And I want to try to work here at least for a year. And through all the help she gave me, I ended up landing a job. I'm going to be working in Watertown as an assistant principal just by having not 0 to 9 administrative experience. But I do remember the best advices that I received from the Sami mentorship was, first of all, the most important one, there's life outside of Harvard. There's so many things happening in that year. You want to do everything and you have this fear of missing out. But there's so many things happening outside of Harvard. You need to take care of your personal life, your own well-being, your professional life, your friends. I remember having a specific particular situation with my spouse family, and I had to travel to Chile for an emergency. She was there all the time for me. And I still remember there's life outside that year. And the other advice that I received was like, think about what you want to do next, and also go step by step. And I remember that specific goal that we created, or I created, was trying to navigate this system. And just by giving you examples, I started studying after 8 years of teaching in the classroom, and I was having that very difficult situation or challenging idea. Am I ready to leave the classroom? Am I ready to leave my students to start trying to be an administrator in schools? And at the same time, I didn't know anything about the US system. So she was really caring and she was really helpful to understand how to navigate step by step, from how to build a resume with an American English and not with a British English that I learned, how to write a cover letter, and how to connect with schools and everything. So, and a very good advice that I also received from her was just go out there, just try to do it, like jump, get into the tigers, like don't be afraid, just send an email, just connect with someone. There's a life out there, and just enjoy it. So I really appreciate the opportunity to have been paired with someone, because as both Aaron and Erin said, it's a safe space that you really need. There's a lot of help in HAXI, and there's so much that you cannot have everything, but it's a safe space where you can connect with someone that really thinks like you, helps you navigate the system. And specifically for international people, it's such an overwhelming thing to do that it's really nice to have someone who's there and that it's still connected with me. I still remember I sent her a picture, hey, I graduated and I had a very important news, I'm having a baby. So there's life outside of Harvard. So yeah, I'm still connected with her, and I'm planning on still connecting with her, because I know that I have someone to call if I have an issue. For example, I don't know what to do in the school. I know that I have someone to call to.
Oh, that's wonderful, Benjamin, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Benjamin, Aaron, thank you all so much. This is just such fantastic perspective to get from the three of you. We really appreciate your time and your offering this today. And so that ends our formal presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. So now I can see all of you. Hello. And I really hope that you found the training helpful. And so now we'll pivot to the Q&A portion. So yeah, feel free to raise your hand, put your questions in the chat. Charles, go ahead.
Thank you. So first, well done. I thought you did a lovely job explaining what the goals are for the program. And I thought the people doing the providing the commentary about their real experiences in a short time, you've made the program somewhat very clear. I also, over the years, have had lots of experiences running mentorship programs inside companies, because one of the things I did when I was at Harvard was I had a choice. I had thought about becoming a superintendent or possibly taking some of the skills that I had learned as a counselor and as a consultant in schools over to the business school. And I landed up working in the executive program for management development at Harvard and was mentored by a professor over there. And so some of what I'm interested in isn't necessarily in schools, although I've done some work in schools. But the thing that I found that was really key and critical is the emotional connection that people have on mentors and mentees, because one of the problems that exist is, and the people who spoke wonderfully about the great matching job you did, first of all, and secondly, how powerful the relationship became and how well it worked for them. But the thing that I found is a lot of times people are really unclear about expectations in these roles. And that a lot of times it becomes even uncomfortable to have the 30-minute conversation because you're not really quite clear who's driving the agenda, who creates the agenda, who's responsible for making sure that we actually do have a meaningful connection. And I've spent my last 20 some years in the field of emotional intelligence. And it seems to me there's a big piece about how do I give feedback if I don't think it's working? How do I have a conversation that introduces the idea that this isn't what I thought it might be? So I think perhaps one of the things I've seen that's helpful is sometimes people that become mentors have a chance to get together in a couple of months to talk about how it's going and to just see what other people are experiencing so they don't feel alone out there. You offer the opportunity of a call in and make have a conversation with one of you, and that's great. It's also, I think, helpful to have people who are doing the same thing, having some positive, some not such positive experiences with it. Just talk that through with other people. So just a suggestion for you to consider. But again, thank you. I thought you did a very nice job explaining it, and you certainly covered a lot of bases in a very short time. So I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Charles. I appreciate that perspective. So Will, I saw that you asked a question in the chat. What is an efficient way to get familiar with the current curricular offerings? Emily, I wonder if you might respond to Will's question, being in a more of a student-facing role.
Sure. Well, since we got this question in a private chat as well, the Sami program is open to all students, all degree students. So their courses are going to vary somewhat because we'll have doctoral students, we'll have our online cohorts. This year we'll have both second year online master's candidates as well as first year online master's candidates. And those folks have more of a mid-career level entry point than some of our traditional residential students. So I think the best way is really to go over what the student is considering with them directly. We won't have the fall offerings until the end of August. So really just talking through their goals with them and asking about course offerings and what they're considering, I think is the best way to do that. But we'll also share some resources. We do a monthly email, and also what Charles said, we have a group online on our alumni community where you can all connect with one another. But we did get that feedback last year, and we can definitely have more meetups of mentors if that would be helpful. I hope that answered your question well.
Thank you so much, Emily. I appreciate that. And then I'm just going to address Peter's question, and I see we have a couple of hands raised. So Peter asked, I can imagine a situation in which it becomes clear that I am the wrong mentor to help my mentee to achieve their goals. What should I do? Reach out to us. That really is the perfect opportunity to contact our team with your concerns. And of course, you can feel free to be open and honest with your mentee to communicate those concerns to them as well. It's a conversation that they may also bring up, but I would definitely encourage, if you're needing that support, to contact us, and we can figure out the best course of action at that point. Jian Peng, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. You're up next. And you're muted. If you could just unmute, please. Thank you.
Yes. I'm probably one of those who attended Harvard a very, very long time ago, 1991. And I also serve as a doctoral student mentor for our city university here in New Jersey, Jersey City University. And one of the issues happened to that cohort is very similar to Harvard students. Students arrive at Harvard overwhelmed, inundated by a lot of things. And Harvard offers a variety of fantastic programs, but not every opportunity is taken advantage of by students. So I wonder, when you mentioned that sometimes the volunteer mentors do not get a match. So my question in my head is it because students are so overwhelmed that's just not another one more program they are willing to take advantage of? I mean, not because there is no need, rather is they are so inundated and overwhelmed. And if so, what can we do as volunteer mentors to help because those who are here, they are already on board. It's those who aren't here that probably could benefit even more. And one of the things I did was I did a sort of a 1 hour presentation to the entire class. And as a result, many more people signed up for the mentor program. We went through what you just did, what it is about and how it works and how it benefits you, etc. So that was my question. How do we reach those people who aren't here? What can we do?
Sure, that's a great question. So to kind of acknowledge the initial part of your question, I think when students are applying to be part of the program, it could be for various reasons. It could be a matter of feeling overwhelmed, or maybe they're just not understanding what the program is, or they didn't realize that the program existed. And I think primarily the reason why a mentor would not get matched just due to numbers. And so when it comes to being able to still support those students, that's why we really want to acknowledge the other opportunities that are available to mentors as part of this presentation. And those are opportunities that we would make our mentors who don't get matched aware of as well, because there are ways that we really would like you to engage with students. Thinking about being a career connector, we many times have students that want to learn more about a specific field or just needing some guidance, outside of HGSE, and may or may not be part of the formal mentorship program. And so that's a way that we can have an alum engage with them to support them. And I would say 10 times out of 10, our alumni are very willing to give back of their time in that way. We have been really increasing our offerings from year to year in terms of professional development and career and networking focused opportunities that are available to support both our alumni and current students. And so for one example I can think of is we have these virtual networking events where students can break out into different rooms with alumni with expertise in those areas. And so it's a way for them to gain knowledge and perspective from alums when they may not be actually in a mentor pair. So again, those are just a couple of examples, and I hope that I'm answering your question. But we really, Emily and I try very hard in our roles to make sure that there are links between alumni and current students by especially the partnerships that we form around HGSC. And so bringing Andrea and Kellyanne here today is one example of that, because I may not be necessarily in a student-facing role as the alumni engagement assistant director, but I do want to make sure that I'm bringing alumni to the students and vice versa. And so that's how that's one way that we facilitate that.
So maybe in that vein, if I may suggest, you may already be doing this, that move the timeline ahead. In other words, as soon as a student is admitted, before they even start the program, maybe the information about you have the opportunity to be connected with someone is offered to them. It might be, I don't know, but that's just a thought.
I'm happy to share too that we have done that as a result of some feedback. So thank you, but keep sending feedback. But this year we had a new onboarding site for our students. And I'm sure many of you know, as Aaron kind of referenced, our residential master's program has gone through a complete redesign. And this is only our second full year of that new set of master's programs, the full set, with the foundational courses being offered in the summertime. So our students right now, incoming, have been taking these very intensive online courses. So we're trying to also balance that, the pressure of the academic with some of this extra co-curricular activity. But I think it's an important thing to mention, and there definitely needs to be more alumni connection with current students starting from that admitted point.
Thank you.
So Emily has been doing a fantastic job answering questions in the chat. So thank you, Emily. So as we wrap up at the last couple of minutes, any other questions before we sign off? All right, well, I hope that means that we've done our jobs here today. Thank you all so much for being here and for giving back of your time to this program. You will be receiving this recording and this copy of the slide deck and other resources by next week. And you'll be getting communications from us leading up to the formal launch of the program in August. So thank you very much. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day.